Paul, how often have you taken LSD?
4 times.
And where did you get it from?
So, you know, I mean, if I was to say where I got it from, you know, it's illegal and everything. It's silly to say that, you know, so I'd rather not say that.
Don't you believe that this was a matter which you should have kept private?
But the thing is, you know, that I was asked a question by a newspaper, and the decision was whether to tell a lie or to tell him the truth, you know. I decided to tell him the truth. But I really didn't want to say anything, you know, because if I'd had my decision, you know, if I had it my way, I wouldn't have told anyone, you know, because I'm not trying to spread the word about this. But the man from the newspaper is the man from the mass medium, you know. I'll keep it a personal thing. If he does too, you know, if he keeps it quiet. But he wanted to spread it, so it's his responsibility, you know, for spreading it, not mine.
But you're a public figure, and you said it in the first place, and you must have known that it would have made the newspapers.
Yes, but to say it, you know, is only to tell the truth. I'm telling the truth, you know. I don't know what everyone's so angry about.
Or do you think you have now encouraged your fans to take drugs?
I don't think it'll make any difference, you know. I don't think my fans are going to take drugs just because I did, you know. But the thing is, that's not the point anyway, you know. I was asked whether I had or not. And then from then on, the whole bit about how far it's going to go and how many people it's going to encourage is up to the newspapers and up to you, you know, on television. I mean, you're spreading this now at this moment. This is going into all the homes, you know, in Britain. And I'd rather it didn't, you know. But you're asking me the question. You want me to be honest. I'll be honest, you know.
But as a public figure, surely you've got a responsibility to lots and
No,
lots
it's
of
you've
teenagers.
got the responsibility. You've got the responsibility not to spread this now. You know, I'm quite prepared to keep it as a very personal thing, if you will too. If you'll shut up about it, I will.
And everybody knows that the Beatles went through a drug phase. Did it ever occur to you, or did you ever stop and think of it this way, that the fact that this was known and the fact that you were the Beatles might have caused thousands of kids to go into drug problems that might not have otherwise?
Well, no. Let him ask
Shut up,
the
will you?
question. Let him ask the question. First of all, when we took the notorious wonder drug LSD,
Yeah.
it was we didn't know we were having it. John and I had this drug, and it was given. We were having dinner with our dentist, and he put it in our coffee and never told us. And we never heard of it. I mean, it's a good job we hadn't heard of it, because there's been so much paranoia created around the drug that people now, if they take it, they're already on a bad trip before they start. Whereas for us, we didn't know anything. We were so naive, and so we had it, and we went out to a club, and it was incredible. It was really incredible. So a couple of years later, Paul had the drug too. And the TV people in England came and they said, so you've had this wonder drug LSD. And he was saying, well, look, it's, you know, the question you asked me about the responsibility for everybody else. Paul said to the TV people, look, I'm not saying if I had the drug, it's you. If you're going to ask me if I've had it, I'm going to say yes, because I've had it. I'm not going to lie. So he said, they said, well, have you had LSD? And before they asked, he said, it's your responsibility, because if you're going to ask me and I'm going to say yes, and you're going to put it on the TV saying, yes, we've had LSD. So really, it was their fault. So they asked the question, Paul said yes, and then they put it on and said, oh, they've had LSD, and then the world goes crazy.
Yeah. I just wondered if if you have to stop and think about, you used the word responsibility, which is it always sounds so hokey when your school teacher says you have a tremendous responsibility. You know. But did you ever take that kind of thing seriously and think, we got to watch ourselves, because if we do this, other people will do that?
Yeah, we always had to watch ourselves.
Yeah.
Because if we weren't watching ourselves, there was somebody else out there who was.
Yeah.
And there was always reporters who would follow us around on tour and always try breaking into our room, catching us doing something.
Yeah.
Something maybe that we shouldn't have been doing. And the whole thing is that people want other people to do nasty things because they feed off it. And then they write, they're doing nasty things. It's like in a newspaper in England, I met David Frost the other day. Can I say David Frost, or do you bleep it out?
Once.
Okay. I bumped into him in the hotel and he said, here, to really bring you down, is a copy of the News of the World. He'd just come from England. He bought this paper, and there's a big story on the front saying...
That's the scandal sheet in England.
Yeah. But it's a big story saying about this group called the Marmalade, how they had orgies with the teenage fans and all this sort of thing. But the whole idea of these reporters going out for months and months, scraping around, you know, lifting up the pavement, trying to see what rubbish there is to write about. And then they write about it as if they're saints and as if everybody isn't doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the responsibility... I mean, maybe you just should stay at home and never say anything. That's definitely the easiest.
The problem was it then gave the press a field day to be on all our cases, you know. I personally didn't think it was any of their business. But, you know, once he said it, you know, whoever said anything in the Beatles, the other three had to deal with it. You know, which we did with all love, because, you know, we loved each other. But I could have done without it myself. Well, you see, I feel to this day that, you know, we did take certain substances, but never to a great extent at the sessions. You know, we took a little, but whenever we'd overdid our intake, the music we made was absolutely shit. And you know, we'd go home real happy with the tape, and we'd play it when we got home, and you'd play it the next day, and it was just, every time we'd come back to record again, we'd all look at each other and say, well, we have to do that again, because, you know, it didn't work. It didn't work for the Beatles to be too deranged when making music.
Now, the point about the whole drug scene was the press asked Paul, have you taken LSD? This is how it all came out. Otherwise, we didn't say a word about it, you know? I mean, it was just a personal thing, right?
We took H because of what the Beatles and their pals were doing to us. And we got out of it, you know. I mean, they didn't set down to do it, but people's things came out at that period, you know. And I don't forget. Throwing up, I just threw up for hours till I went on. I nearly threw up in cold. I read a review in Stone about the film, which I haven't seen yet. We're meant to see it tomorrow, that rock and roll. And they're saying, you know, I was this and that. And I was throwing up nearly in the number. I could hardly sing any of them. I was full of shit, you know. But with one thing and another, it just had to come out somewhere, you know. I don't think I'll do much appealing. It's not worth the strain. You know? I don't want to perform too much for people.
In the late 60s, there was a headhunting cop who was not very high up in the drug department in London, which was pretty new anyway. They had 2 dogs for the whole department. And he went round and bussed every pop star he could get his hands on, and he got famous. And some of the pop stars had dope in the house, and some of them didn't. It didn't matter to him. He planted it or did whatever. Later on, that's what he did to me, because at that time I didn't have any drugs. And
he planted something in your house. He planted marijuana in your house, didn't he? Or you say he did.
Yeah, I mean, I say he did. I know.
Well, I have to say that because I wasn't there.
Well, he's not going to get us. We're in America,
okay.
All right? He's in jail now, by the way.
You said that we are now coming into, indeed we are into the post-drug culture.
Yes.
You're talking to the young people.
Yes.
Are you saying that drugs are passé?
Yeah, you know, people that take drugs, I mean, when I talk about drugs, I mean hard stuff like speed and the things that the kids are getting into now. It means they've got no hope. The only time I ever took drugs was when I had no hope. And when you're on drugs, it's harder to find hope. It's like the alcoholics. We've seen all the films about our parents. They were all alcoholics, you know. And when you are alcoholic, you don't know. You can't face up to it. And you're too far gone before you find out. You're really hooked. And speed does kill. All those things kill. And you've got to have hope. And if we can give people hope, then they won't need drugs.